I work as a camera technician for a Ghost Hunters-esque TV show yet to be released, which is going to be centered around some supposedly haunted forest in Eastern Europe. I'm pretty sure I shouldn't reveal the name of the program for legal reasons, and of course I'll change all the names, but I promise everything that happened in this post is from my own experience. I would like to preface by saying that this story isn't nearly as interesting as some of the others I've seen from my cursory glance of this subreddit, and yet I still don't feel well at all thinking back on last week. I was originally planning on forgetting about this, but after a quick long-distance call to my therapist, I've learned that writing all this out may make me feel a little better. Since I'm writing all this from a motel with god-awful Wi-Fi, sorry if this shows up at a real late hour. You know, 'cause of time zone differences and all that jazz. But I digress. Let's get to the juicy stuff. Let's get to what you came here for. On the first day of filming prep, me and the crew arrived at a small, crowded airport. The show's producer, director, and star, we'll call him Rob, decided to shove past me because he felt he had to be the first to the luggage. I'm almost sure I heard him muttering something under his breath about how these are untrustworthy people, and that he didn't want any of them swiping his luggage. I personally felt a little embarrassed to be seen with this guy in public. Me and the rest of the film crew complacently waited for the luggage belt to become less congested, and we were on our way. The first order of business was to get some grub. We stopped off at a cute little cafe where an infuriatingly pleasant elderly couple made us some pretty tasty sandwiches. Our editor, I'll call her Caroline, struck up a conversation with the couple which I understood pretty much none of. There I sat, thinking about how much work I had put into my high school Spanish classes, all to be stuck in verbal darkness for what could possibly be the next 6 months of my life. It's funny how things hardly ever turn out the way they need to, and nobody bats an eye at any of it, at how horrible things happen, and we're just expected to climb over the newly planted hurdle in our path. Other than that, lunch was nice. By the time we finished eating, it was around 5-ish, and our sleep-deprived selves were exhausted. After checking into the motel I'm currently writing from, we each trudged up to our respective rooms and got settled in for the night. I turned the radiator on and put my sheets over it to warm them up. While I waited, I realized how close this motel actually was to the forest. The sun was beginning to set, and in the distance I saw its iconic figure. I could see why locals were afraid of this place. A great, sickly, dark green mass of uncertainty where people feel a hint of their primeval instincts, attempting to keep them safe and scared in the face of uncertainty. Why are places like this so innately terrifying? We fear lions because their ancestors were our enemies in humanity's vulnerable stages. But there's something so especially unnerving about these wooded spires, adorned with long, slender growths tipped with soft, fleshy green. The sheets were probably done. I was putting them back on the bed while spacing out into the forest. I noticed what I assumed were the headlights of a car bobbing between the trees. The lights were mesmerizing, and they were gone. The night I dreamt. I am stumbling out of the woods towards the town. It's early morning. My stomach, my belly was sick with someone else's blood. There's something I'm running from something, oh God, I've misbehaved, haven't I? And I was in my bed again, grateful I was free from that distress. We all crowded into our rental van and made our way out of town. Buildings fell away into farmland, which itself eventually devolved into a simple rural area. I looked ahead and saw it quickly approaching, that looming congregation of trees hiding anything and everything beyond their thick wooden mess. Thick, brown, calcified cylinders tangling their long fingers and reaching up into the cosmos. We parked our car on the edge of the woods, grabbed our equipment from the trunk, and began our trek. First off, they had me set up some tripod cams. I began placing them in miscellaneous areas of our path. I set one next to our van looking on in the woods, one looking down a hiking trail, and the final camera placed in front of some old shack Rob would say is a paranormal hotspot to the audience. Along with these, all the actors carried cameras with them. By the time all that was done, it was getting pretty dark, and we decided it was time to get filming. Caroline retreated back to the van where she had equipment set up to watch all the camera feeds remotely. The rest of the group and I wandered deep inside. Rolling. Hey there, all you paranormal enthusiasts. Tonight we're gonna make some supernatural history. A bold claim, Rob, I muttered to myself from behind the camera as the sun was slowly masticating by the glutinous trees. Filming went on as planned for the next 2 hours or so, with Rob and his unpaid interns reacting to the smallest snap of a branch, like an underpaid B horror movie actor. And then we found it, the clearing. Somewhere in the middle of the woods, this perfect circle with absolutely no trees, no foliage, not even weeds. The tree line stopped abruptly at the edge, maybe out of reverence, maybe out of fear. Upon entering the clearing, I immediately felt carsick. I had to focus on my footsteps solely to keep from throwing up. Even Rob wasn't his charismatic self. No commentary, just a wide-eyed tension, as if he was walking through a minefield, and a foot in the wrong place could lead to instant, thoughtless obliteration. We stopped in the middle of the circle. I waited for Rob to start back up with his talking, but he didn't. None of us did. That's when the camera detected emotion. The camera, the one I had set up looking on in the woods. The feed showed absolutely nothing, and yet all of us were glued to the screen. Now cam 2. Again, nothing. Nothing. Cam 3. Nothing. Wait. My heart sank as I realized the camera was focused in now on a different location than before. On 4 figures huddled together around some lights in a clearing. On us. I hesitantly looked up into the woods, the sliver I still had of my primal self whispering for me not to. I made eye contact with the trees. Silence. Oh God. One of the interns tries to silence the feedback coming from their walkie-talkie. Eee! Rob starts yelling at the intern to turn it off. He stands up quickly, accidentally unplugging and knocking over nearly all of our lights and equipment. Eee! My flashlight begins rolling along the ground and almost barely lighting up something in the distance. An intern begins having an asthma attack. What is it? What the hell is it? Pale. Then the earth swallowed Rob. I scrambled for the flashlight and shone it on where they stood. Just a hole. A perfectly circular hole. Shining the light down it, I found Rob, clinging to the edge with trembling white fingers. I helped him out and made sure he was doing alright while the intern finally just took the batteries out of the walkie-talkie. He had some minor scratches, but other than that, he was fine. The hole must have been nearly invisible to us in the dark. Rob managed to stutter out that he thinks he dropped his camera down there. I shone a light into the hole. The sides were completely smooth, definitely not made from the same material. The hole stretched so far down I couldn't see the camera. Luckily, we had a live feed going to Caroline's laptop in the van. The walk back seemed to drag on for hours, and we all gave a collective sigh of relief upon seeing the van through the trees. I explained everything that happened to Caroline, who didn't seem much up for discussion as she looked equally as pale as the rest of us. The drive back to the motel was done in a solemn sort of silence. We all muttered our respective good nights to each other and went up to our rooms. I was rather exhausted and managed to fall asleep without even taking my clothes off. Yet another dream. I'm in town. No one else. I'm guilty. I hear my mother call to me, but it's not her. I woke up, rolling over to the alarm clock on the dresser. 4:00 a.m. I tried to swallow and found my throat bone dry. I got up and walked out of my room to the ice machine at the end of the hall. I saw a light streaming out from under Caroline's door. She was reviewing and editing the footage. I made my drink and fell back to sleep. In the morning, we all clambered into Caroline's room to review the footage. She was obviously asleep deprived after all she had been reviewing that footage all night. Caroline put her laptop on a small coffee table and we all gathered around it with food out chairs. She began clicking a pen nervously as she explained how some of the footage wasn't usable because the data had gotten corrupted. Rob gave her a dirty look as if it was her fault. She started pulling up the footage and we all began peering into the small screen. The clicking stopped and I noticed red in the corner of my eye. A small circle of blood was pooling on the table around Caroline's fidgeting hands. Caroline, I think you're bleeding." She looked down at her shaking hands. She had pushed the pencil about an inch into the palm of her left hand. I got a napkin and one of the interns got some bandages from downstairs as the blood began to drip off the table and onto the carpet. We decided not to finish watching the footage. I guess that takes us to me writing this right now. I hope you guys found my distress fun to read about, and please let me know if you want to hear what happens after we continue filming next week.